Okay, well, I always get up here and get excited because I get to introduce our speaker. Well, as most of you know, tonight is our good friend. Many of you have already had the experience of getting to know sweet Deborah. She is such a giver, a helper, talented artist. So you're already doing that. We are blessed with as much as she does for this league, for the gallery, and any questions you have. She has helped my husband and I tremendously. Like we're artists on the side, and we didn't know anything about any of the marketing, selling, and she's just been invaluable. She can help with technology things, and I'm sure she's going to share a lot tonight that will be helpful. So we are very excited to have her tonight. So I'm going to give an official. She's kind of embarrassed. She's like, just make it short. I'm like, no, I'm reading this whole thing. So, join us in welcoming Deborah Setzer, a Tyler-based artist who will be demonstrating subtractive painting, a painting method that lends to a quick start for any painting regardless of the subject matter. It is fun, messy, and very forgiving method of painting. She may even share some things about herself you never knew, regardless of how long you may have known her. You don't want to miss this unique experience of live painting and time of sharing. Deborah believes that God used painting to help her survive years in a traumatic circumstance. She states that God used art and painting to heal her from the inside out, and said it was through art she learned of God's mercy and grace. Now she paints to share her experience of God as the one who delivered her from that life of trauma and a once bleak future. Prayer and painting goes hand in hand with this artist as she feels the closest to God while painting. Deborah feels blessed to practice as an artist in Tyler, Texas, and grateful to be surrounded by her loving family and a strong art community. Deborah has taught painting to students of all ages and of all walks of life. She has a passion for teaching and community involvement. Witnessing the joy of painting in students has been a source of great satisfaction. She believes that teaching has made her a better artist and is passionate about guiding her students in their artistic journeys. Deborah is often a featured speaker and teaches classes and private lessons at multiple venues, including Rose City Art Gallery in Tyler, Texas. She wholeheartedly believes everyone can learn to paint and become competent in their abilities. She claims that she is the least likely candidate to be able to paint, having no natural ability with a late start in life. Therefore, she often says, if I can learn, anyone can learn. Painting is a skill-based activity which can be taught and learned. Deborah values continued art education and currently attends classes and workshops to improve skills and explore new painting methods, but proclaims nothing can replace putting in the time behind the brush. Practice makes progress. Help me welcome Deborah Setzer.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is it's a real honor to be able to speak at Foro. This is something I didn't think I would ever do. So here I am. Anyway, and thank you all for coming. The support has been amazing, so thank you. I also want to mention that my family, Sherry, my sister, my niece Jessica, and my nephew Corey are here as well. So I was just thrilled that they could be here. All right, so first thing I want to say is this. I want to be able to share more with you than I have time for. So tonight is not about a finished painting. It's more about learning a method. You know, instead of teaching someone how to paint a tree or paint a building or paint a flower, if you learn methods, then you can paint anything because the principles apply to everything. You know, so that's why I believe in methods. And so the wipe away method. Has anybody ever heard of the wipe away method? Also called my student there because we just did that. It's also called reductive painting. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah. So basically, you put paint on, you pull paint off, and somewhere along the process, a miracle happens. You end up with an image. So that's the goal for tonight. All right. But in the process of sharing this method with you, I also want to be able to share my art journey, because part of my art journey is, well, The whole purpose of art for me, well, actually, let me reverse that. Art gave me a purpose when I had no purpose. It was at a time in my life, as Tina already read, that was the worst time in my life. And hopefully we'll never have to experience anything worse than that, God willing. My heart was so angry, devastated, demoralized, resentful, hate-filled, that nothing would penetrate. And it was through art that softened my heart, and that's how I came to know God. Now, I know there may be a lot of different belief systems in this room, and I'm not even talking about religion. I'm talking about my own experience with art and what it's done for me. Okay? So I just want to say that right off the bat. I want to start, first of all, kind of explaining what we're doing. I'm using oil paint, and you can use acrylic in wipe away. It's just harder, and you need a medium to do it with. Oil, it stays wet for a really long time, so you have lots of playroom, right? But kind of just so what I'm using here, I may not even use all of these colors, all right? And I'll explain the colors that I'm using as I'm using it, because it's so much more efficient. But the main thing I want you to know before I even start is I like to use transparent paint. And you know, there's some paint that you can kind of see through it if you put it over something. There's other paint that's very opaque, and it covers whatever you put it on top of. So what I'm using is very transparent colors, and I picked them just for that property, right? But you can use any color you want. You're not just limited to the colors that I'm using tonight, all right? So the first thing you want to do when you're starting something like this, and I like to use like ugly brushes, like these, what do they call these, chip brushes? Yeah. So I like to use these a lot, especially with wipe away, because it's so much quicker.
Okay.
All right, so the first thing I want to do is tone my canvas, and I'm going to use Indian yellow, my absolute favorite yellow, very translucent. I'm going to add some Gamsol, and for those of you that are not oil painters, got a little contaminated there, that aren't oil painters, Gamsol is like a terp. So you can see what I'm painting on right now, and I know that some of you are looking at my back, but I can't really look at you and do this at the same time. So bear with me. If you add a little terp to the paint, it kind of smears it around a lot easier. And you don't have to be pretty about this. The whole point is just to get the color on there, get it kind of moving it around, because the whole purpose is to tint, just to tint what I'm working on. This is going to be a color that's going to kind of shine through at the end. So it's kind of my base. So once you have it on there, then all you need to do is just move it around.
Deborah,
Yes.
explain a little more about what it is that you mix in there.
It's called Gamsol, which is, huh?
Spell it.
Gamsol? Gamsol, I think. Yeah, Gamsol. If you don't really know what these elements are that I'm talking about as far as the materials go, we will have a beginner oil painting class if it's something that you want to pursue. So I encourage you to do that. And by the way, there are some classes on the website now, so you might want to check that out. Okay, so this is called toning the canvas. I want this to kind of seep in a little bit and stain the canvas. So while the video's playing, it will do its job. So what I want to, before they start this video, I kind of want to say a couple of things. This video is probably the biggest project that I did when I first started painting. And it was challenging and scary. It's 37 feet long, 8 feet high. So it's a very long wall. And I'll explain more about it as we go. But I kind of want you to know right from the back, this is in a medical center in Carswell. This is called the calm within the storm. And it will make sense at the end why I named it that. So you can go ahead and turn. About this mural, and it was challenging and daunting, and it took a very long time. As I said, it's at FMC Carswell Main Medical Center, and housed in this center, it's actually a prison. And so the inmates that are on this unit where this mural was put up all got to pick something they wanted to hide in the mural. So it became they gave me like somebody wanted SpongeBob, another person wanted a treasure chest, a clock, and all sorts of different things. And so what I did is I took the little images that they gave me, and I just kind of put them in really tiny little spots, so they had to literally scan the whole mural and the whole 37 feet of it. So it created a lot of community involvement, you know, and I know that as artists, you know how art can unify people, It can create a lot of interest. It can heal, as I've already mentioned. And at this time, I needed a purpose, and that was my purpose while I was doing this. And I'm going to explain more about that whole experience, about being, going to that prison and painting this mural, and I taught classes there to these inmates, and incredible people. A lot of us think that because somebody goes to prison that they're bad, they're evil. And there's a lot of good people in prison. Some people are in prison who don't even belong there. And there's a lot of people that do. Right? It's a dangerous place to be. I'm going to kind of touch on that in a minute, but I did want to mention how there was hidden things. Mm-hmm. So there's also one other thing that this mural did for these folks. It gave them something that they could pick out of the mural, and whatever they wanted to be, I put it in the mural. One person that really stands out to mind, she said, I want you to put a shipwreck in there because my life is a wreck. I ruined my life, she says. So she became the shipwreck. And other people, the pot of whales was that person's family. There's a pot of whales of 5 different whales, and that was her family. Another person was the pearl in the oyster, and so on. The only thing on that mural that didn't belong to anyone was the mermaid with the big shell on her head. That was the deity. And below that was an eel, and that eel represented the evilness. So I had in that mural the deity, or my faith in God, and below that was the evil, and how the good overshadowed the evil. So this mural had a lot of meaning to all of us. Me as the artist, the inmates that picked who they wanted to be out of this mural. So you can go ahead and hit play and just kind of finish that. Hopeless people. I am so incredibly grateful for that experience, believe it or not. And you're going to wonder why in a minute, why I'm grateful for that. When everything is taken away in our life, then what are you? And so I want you to keep that in mind as we're doing this mural. So what I'm doing here is a landscape, and I'm going to do any particular reference photo, even though you could. I did do a portrait with this method, the wipe away method, which is on my website if you want to see that time lapse. It's an older woman called Whispers in Time. But you could pretty much do still lifes this way. Okay, so we have our panel. This is a wood panel, nice and smooth, now toned and ready to go. So the only thing I have to do now is apply more paint. And when you apply paint, you want to kind of think about where do I want my lights to be and where do I want my darks to be, right? So I'm going to just kind of so you kind of know where I'm going with this. I'm going to sketch out what my composition is really quickly. And I'm just going to use a little red to do that. Usually in my classes, I have a lot more time to teach things, so this is going to be interesting. All right, so I'm going to say my horizon line is going to be about right there. Okay, that's my horizon line. And I like water. So I'm going to say I'm going to have a body of maybe a stream, or it's probably bigger than a creek, so I'm going to call it a stream. Here's my water. And I'm not really teaching composition tonight, but we could talk about it if you wanted to. Over here and in here is my land masses. I'm going to have some faraway shrubberies. It's kind of tucked in there. Okay. What else do I want in there? I'm going to end up with a tree right here, but I'm not going to put that in quite yet. So I know it doesn't look like much, but that's kind of the layout where I'm going with this. My lightest area is going to be kind of in this area here and in the water right here. So my darker area is going to be everything else. All right. So I'm just going to grab a big bristle brush because it holds a lot of paint. And I'm going to start applying some darker colors. I like this, it's very translucent color. This is called brown pink. Not something a lot of people are. Brown pink. And I love it because it has a lot of red in it. It's kind of similar to earth red oxide, if you've ever heard of that. All right, so I'm just going to kind of sporadically put some darks in there. Notice how I am not really concerned. I'm not real concerned about the quality of my brush stroke. All right. What I'm concerned about is just getting the paint on there. I'm also going to apply a little bit of some raw umber. I'm going to apply my blue slipping. I'm going to apply a little bit of blue in the raw umber, just to darken it a little bit. So I want right over here, I want to be my darkest spot. Okay. I know it doesn't look like a mess, it's just a mess. We want it to be a mess. Pick up some more of that brown pink, kind of get it all in here. I'm going to add some of this naphtha red, which is also transparent color, to a little bit of that brown pink. And I'm going to kind of come in here, and this is going to be like a lighter, brighter, hotter area. Just lay that in there like so. You ever heard of Payne's Gray?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We're going to add a little Payne's Gray. It's kind of like what I see cooks in the kitchen. I'm not a cook, but when I see cooks in the kitchen and they're just adding all these ingredients, painting's like that. So you just grab a little of this, a little of that. I could even put a little green in there. Because again, it doesn't really matter. What I'm looking at is I need it to be dark. So I pulled from the darks. And I could cross over into my little water area there. I'm going to go back to my chip brush and pick up some more of this Indian yellow. And I'm going to lay some of this more of this Indian yellow in my water here, because I want that to be a hot area. I know it's a hot mess, isn't it? I know what you're thinking, because I remember the first time I saw this done, I thought, oh my gosh, they don't know what they're doing. And it's possible. I may not. We'll see how this turns out. All right. So now that we have our colors on here, I like to then take a soft brush, something really soft. A synthetic brush is what you want, all right? And then I just get this kind of mushed together. kind of like kneading dough. Just mush it, mush it, mush it.
Is that a technical term?
That's a technical term, yes. I'm actually going downward with this because you see how there's a glare? Okay, so I'm going down just to get rid of that glare. But again, you can see how this dirty mess is going up into the sky, right? That's okay. So I'm going to go back again. Make sure this is nice and mushed and mixed. Bring it down. And now let's see what we end up with. You getting dizzy? I didn't say me dizzy when I looked at it. All right.
Did you zoom in?
All right.
I'm zooming in on the painting. Yeah.
These Viva towels are great, or shop towels is what I generally use because there's not a lot of lint in them. And I'm gonna need somebody to kind of pay attention to the time, so give me like a 15-minute cutoff, okay? All right. So the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to start pulling some paint off by just wiping it away. So I'm going to start to expose. Would it be better if I put this on my head so it didn't make all this?
Yeah.
Is this how I put it on? Oh, it looks weird, doesn't it? No. I feel like I got Mickey Mouse in this one. Oh, there's no water. I'm very sorry. Okay. All right. So it was bugging me too. All right. So we're going to pull some of this out, and you can see how it doesn't pull all the paint off, does it? And then I'm going to pull out my other hot areas, which is going to be in the water, because I'm going to have some reflection from the sky, right? Okay. And you can see how this is messy, which is why I wear gloves. Nobody ever sees me wear gloves when I paint, but when I do this, I like to. But check this out. If I apply a little bit more pressure, and maybe even kind of wad up my paper towel to where there's a point, and dip it into a little of that Gamsol, watch what happens. All artists know that feeling of, oh, yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to say my son is going to be there, okay? All right, but we could go even farther with it. Just keep folding your paper towel so you end up with a clean area. And start pulling off more and more paint to let that color come through. And this is the kind of method that is a process. It's not like one wipe, you're done. So I'm going to revisit that area just a little bit. I just wanted to get the main part off the sky. We're going to make that sky even brighter. And while I'm thinking of it, I want to bring out a little highlights in the water here for the same reason.
Okay, I've never wanted to oil paint, but now I do.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
You guys sure this isn't too loud?
No, it's not.
Okay. All right. So just take a little. It's kind of like magic.
It is.
That's what I love about this. And you know, as you're removing things, like things get removed out of our lives, things that we think we need, and look what happens. And that's what happened in my life. I got to share with you, actually, this is a good time to stop before I'm not going to pause, right? When I painted that mural, a lot of people just assume, oh, she got clearance, she went in there, did her thing, went home at night. That's not the case. I was an inmate in that federal prison. I was sent to federal prison. I was facing 25 years to life for a crime my brother did. And, if I tear up tonight, it's not because of sadness, it's because of gratitude that God helped me survive that whole experience. am incredibly grateful for the life I have today, and I never thought I would say that even before prison, because I did not like life before prison. I was always a very depressive person, always battled with mental health issues, not knowing who I was or what was going to happen, and I mean, I just kind of floundered. But anyway, I ended up in federal prison for something I didn't do, and I just didn't understand. You know, I was raised in a family of faith, and I didn't understand how God let that happen, and I was so angry at God. And even before prison, I was angry at God for so many other reasons, which we don't have time to talk about right now. But my heart got so hard and so angry, and I was so afraid. It is a scary place to be in prison.
We love you, Deborah.
I love you guys. He doesn't like my family. Anyway, made me cry. Okay, so
It's okay.
so while I was in prison, God did some amazing things. I hated it there, every second of it I hated it there. And I didn't think I would survive. I even tried to kill myself and it didn't work a couple of times. But you know, God sent someone to me. She was a yoga instructor, another inmate. She was a yoga instructor. And we became very good friends, and she was an artist. And she taught me how to paint while I was in there. And we spent a lot of time together while we were in there. And then she went home. And I was like, God, now what? You know? Because by then I was hooked on painting. You know, art just took over my life at that point. I fell in love with art. And by the time she was leaving, I was already teaching other inmates. And I hadn't been painting that long. See, inside, you share what you have when you have it. You don't wait till you have a master's degree to, you know, you pass on what you got.
How
And
old were you, Deborah?
how old was I? Actually, this whole ordeal started in my late 30s, and when I came out, I was in my early 50s. So it was a long period of my life. I'm almost 60 now. And I've been out for 5 years. A little over 5 years. God did that. God allowed me to survive. You know, when I was inside and painting and teaching, doors started to be open for me when I was on the inside and going out. Do you know that God gave me my own art studio in prison? The very room where I painted that mural became my art studio. And it became the quiet room on the unit where I lived for so long. I taught classes out of there. The staff gave me a tremendous amount of responsibility. I was responsible for all the supplies, keeping track, organizing events. We even did our own art shows every year. Every year during the holidays, we would decorate the whole unit and transform it. It didn't look like a prison. It was like going to Disneyland by the time we were done. Because when you're on the inside, you use whatever you got. Trash. And we would collect trash and hide it, so we'd have it by the end of the year, so we'd have the supplies that we needed to make what we needed to make in order to decorate the unit, you know. But what happened though is that art, it became a whole entity of its own, and it unified that unit. Before that, everybody was at each other's throats. And I'm not saying that there was no issues after that, but it became a much easier place to live because it gave us purpose. It gave us something to look forward to. And then before you knew it, we had all this art that we could send home to our families at Christmas. And so we were able to connect with our families on the outside. So when we get out of prison, they still know who we are. You know, so that's miraculous. I'm going to get back to that, but let's go back to go back to this. I'll move up to the back trees here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do like a dabbing effect, and I'm going to see if that takes some of it. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing a dabbing effect so I can get these background trees to have some soft edges. How many people are shocked that I went to prison? I'm just curious. Most of the room, okay. Because when I was in prison, I was never like a goody two-shoes. My sister was, I wasn't. But in prison, I was like Mother Teresa because, I was never exposed to that world ever, and so it's a whole culture of its own. So I was just curious if people actually, because sometimes you think it's tattooed on their forehead. That's how I felt when I got out. When I came here and signed up for the first art show for Pearl, oh my gosh, I was so scared. I had to overcome a lot first to get here because I was very agoraphobic, depressed. I felt like everybody knew. Nobody would want me around if they knew the real everything. I thought, everybody's just, if they do know, they're going to think I'm guilty, because at that point I cared. I don't anymore, by the way. So yeah, it was scary. So when I got here, that was my first art show, even though I had been painting on the inside for several years. So sometimes people had asked me, like, well, how did you just show up? Like, they didn't understand. That's why I entered the amateur, because the rules said that if you weren't experienced in all of this, then you sign up for the amateur. So I did. And it was an incredible experience.
And she won!
Oh, and by the way, Linda over here, and oh gosh, I forgot your name. Janice. They greeted me, and they were so kind to me. I think that was the reason why I didn't run away, because they were so. When I got here with all my paintings, I had 5 paintings. They were just so kind. So when we have newcomers in the room, say hello to them and welcome, because you don't know what their story is. That little old lady sitting next to you, she could have done federal time or state time. I know a lot of old people from on the inside, and yeah. So you just don't know their stories, right? Okay, back to this. Okay, so we're going to take away some more of this to try to start developing something, right? Now, I kind of lost my horizon line in there. It's not a problem. All I have to do is wipe it in. So I'm going to do a little corner here, do a little dip, and I'm going to say my horizon line is going to be some in there. Now, I'm not pushing real hard because I don't want it to be super light, but in some areas, I might want to show some highlights, right? And I'm going to say that my little river kind of goes around like this. It'll be more formed in a minute. And so you can start seeing, if you could pan over just a little bit, there you go. You can start seeing how you have like the kind of halo effects kind of in the background, kind of pushes it back. I can even pull out even more of this by just taking my finger and twisting.
Do you ever add more paint?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say I took some off where I didn't want to, just put it back on. So forgiving. Yeah. All right, so now let's develop something over here. Let me look at my notes to see where my composition went. Because, yeah, I did kind of work this out ahead of time. Just because, I just lost my wrong folder. And then there was flip phones, right? There was no iPhone. Technology like went crazy when I was on the inside. So when I got out, talk about culture shock, I didn't know how to use the phone. I didn't know. Going to the grocery store scared me to death because everything was different. You know, going to the gas station, it's like, what? You know, so yeah, it was very overwhelming. So a lot of you think, oh, she's so techie. No, I'm really not. I just had to learn really fast. You know, so I actually read the directions. So anyway, I know a lot of you don't read the directions for your iPhone, but yeah, they do come with directions if you ever want to read them. All right. So I'm going to start building I'm going to do like a little bit of a flat land right here. So notice how, I know you're getting a glare, but I'll take that off in a minute. I'm going to do some texturing. I'm going to do some texturing over here. And you can use paper towels. You can use Q-tips, which I'll use in a minute. All right. What I'm trying to do right now is disturb the paint because I am trying to create some kind of an image that looks like something. It's kind of like molding clay. It's kind of like that, but with paint, you know. All right, so now I'm going to take a paintbrush, and a bigger brush, maybe a soft brush. Here we go. And let's say I want to do something here in the water. So if this is where my land is, and I start pulling this down, it pulls the paint into the water. All right, so that's how you would use like a brush like that. Or I could take a smaller brush and actually use that to get a little bit more details. Maybe I want to pull out even more paint and mold it even more. Maybe I want to take this water over a little bit farther. I think I want to make my world, I can make it whatever I want, right? So I'm going to make this a little wider, right? So let's push that land out of the way. Right? Doesn't it just open up your world? Yeah. And then maybe I could take some Q-tips, and not all Q-tips are created equally, by the way. These are little pointer ones. These are little fat, stubby ones. So you will find, you know, different types in gun stores. You can find like all different kinds of shapes. These are just from Walmart. So I'm going to use these little Q-tips to create like little sky holes in my. Now, if you're not careful, you'll end up with it look like a lot of wormholes. You don't want to do wormholes. And with the drawback with the Q-tips is it kind of makes all the same mark, right? So all you have to do then to get rid of that is pull out a brush and mess it up. So you wipe away, mess it up, you know, until you start developing, you know, the image that you want. I could take this here, dip it in a little Gamsol, and get really kind of fine lines and really pull out some drama. But see, the thing about the Q-tips, once they're dirty, you gotta turn it over and get another one. And you don't want to go too bright too fast. So I could still go brighter than this, all right? I just don't want to go too fast with it. This little tool here, Molly gave me, in the front row. It's like a little paint shaper is what they call them. I can use this. And again, I'm not going to do a full painting because I actually have, it's kind of like a cookie show, you know, where they show you how to put it together and then they pull out the, you know, the finished product out of the oven. So yeah, I've done that for you. But I can make all sorts of marks with this. Like I can make grasses, right? I can make trees. Actually, you know what I want to do? I wanted to put a tree in there. So I'm going to pick up some warmer color. I'm going to put some tall trees up here just because I want to. Maybe even one over here. All right? Okay, so I put down some paint, slap it on there. and start blotting a little bit to disturb the edges, right? I can start creating separations, maybe in the trunks, so it starts forming different designs.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can make this trunk go, there's like a nice little faraway trunk. I can even give like little marks here, just to disturb the paint.
Robert, are you watching this?
Robert's my teacher, right?
know, it's fine, it's
It's a little intimidating to have your teacher in the room. Anyway, and you need to like look up his studio because he has some amazing classes and programs there. But I'll talk to you about that afterwards. All right, so maybe I want a rock here, so I can pull paint away like this. Oh, here's something fun. This is like a little piece of squeegee in one of these bull clips. If I wanted to, I can make a bigger tree here.
What?
A bigger tree. Maybe I want, what do they call those? The white trees. Birch. Aspen. Is there a difference?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, so maybe I want to put some of those in there, so I can pull those out. But if I do that, then, I need more paint. So let's slap some up there. Here's some more paint. Okay. I mean, that's literally how you start forming this. If I want like a hard edge for like the shoreline, I could start developing that. Like so. Kind of bring it in. I can even use my finger. We could do finger painting with this. I'll wipe off my brush. I can pick up like some really dark colors on this little shaper, and I can come here in the front and lay down the dark marks with it too. So you can use anything that you can think of can be used as a tool. This is a natural sponge, So, I mean, I could push into this and you could see how much texture, that gives you here. It looks like what? Oh, does it? Yeah. All right, let me check the time. Where are we on
You're
time?
good.
I'm
You're
good on
fine.
time? Okay. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? So by the time, like, you have everything laid out, and again, I'm not going to finish this one, but by the time you have your whole design laid out, then you go back and strengthen your lights. Because this is, what you're looking at in this kind of painting is you're wiping away to reveal the light, okay? You're taking the dark out so you can see the light. Isn't that what happens in life? At least with my God.
Amen.
Yeah, so I could even make it stronger, and I could bring it down here if I want to. It might not be as strong down here because it's farther away, and maybe I want to have more energy in my sky. And some of you might say, well, what do you do once you have all this done, Then what? Are you stuck with it at this color? No. Because then what you do is you put colors on top of it. I put a blue sky in there if I wanted to, or a purple sky. I could put greens on top of this.
So this is just your values.
This is all about values, really focusing on where the lights are though. Because I could always make it darker. But once you pull it off, you can only go so light with it. So that's why I go slow with the lights. Okay, make sense? All right, so let me pull this off so I don't kind of like that. And I've got a couple of examples here. One's a long version because it was just a scrap piece of wood that I had. And so you can kind of do something like
Oh,
this.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. But this is actually by the time you start pulling stuff off, and I can make some areas darker,
Awesome.
But at this point, that's when I would start adding the color when I'm to this point. And you don't have to wait for it to dry. I could like put color right on top of that if I wanted to, it's just harder. So if you wait for it to dry, now it's bone dry, I can put anything I want to on there. And the neat thing about oils is if I painted this and I didn't like it because it was bone dry underneath, I could just wipe it off. Start over again. It's kind of like a dry erase board. That's why I like oils. It's so forgiving. Everybody's afraid of, a lot of people are afraid of oils. There's nothing to be afraid of. You don't have to use toxic chemicals in order to paint oils. So if you've never painted in oils and you're curious about it, then you need to sign up for one of our beginning oil classes. Any questions about that? Go on to some other things. I wanted to share a few other things about my art journey. Oh, I'm sorry.
So you're using solvent, is that what you use for coat?
No, actually, it's a different medium. It's called a retarder. And what that does is it prevents it from from drying. It slows down that drying time. So you have to work a lot faster, even with that medium, which is why I choose oil. Yes, front row.
Do you do this on canvas ever? Or just...
Good question. I'm doing this on panel now because the surface is so slick. So it's easy to wipe it off, and I'm not fighting the weave of the canvas. So I hate doing this on a canvas, but you can do it on a canvas. Yeah.
I'm getting used to where it's hot and light.
Mhm.
Can you tell me the difference between...
The hot and the light?
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to make this part hot.
Oh, what I was referring to is I wanted to pull more reds or yellows in one area where I wanted to make this bluer, so I added blue down here, which would make it cooler. Warm and cool. If you've never taken a color theory class before and you've always wondered about color temperature, how to mix colors, that was the thing that tripped me out the most when I first started painting. How do you know what color to use? How do I make the color I want to make? I know in grade school they teach us certain things like, yellow and green, yellow and blue make green, but did you know yellow and black make green too? I didn't know that until I accidentally came across it. See, on the inside, we don't have YouTube to learn from, and very little books. You can't get a lot of books in there, especially art books, because there's usually nudity in it, and by the time they dedact everything, you can't read anything. So it's very cumbersome. But remember,
Where would you get your oils from?
yeah, I didn't paint in oils on the inside. I painted with acrylic. I did try watercolor on the inside and hated it. But when I took Molly's class recently, I love watercolor because she taught me actually how to do it correctly. So, yeah. Okay. But, we all have YouTube available to us, so we all don't have any excuse on the outside, right? We have so much information at the tips of our fingers, from books to YouTube videos to classes we could take. And literally on the inside, when my friend went home, I just didn't know what to do. I thought, how am I ever going to progress? And yeah, there's trial and error. God granted me with a few books, and I digested every word of it, But part of my prayer time on the inside was while I painted, and I literally asked God, please teach me how to paint this tree. I don't know how to paint this tree. I just want to paint this tree so I can send a picture home to my sister. And that's literally how it went for me. God teach me how to paint this. I don't know how to paint this. When I started the mural, it was only supposed to be 6 feet long. Yeah, so I painted my 6 feet, and I told the Lord, and I said, I need a little more room. So we extended it, and by the time we did the whole wall, they finally just gave me the whole wall. But God opened doors, like He opens doors in the free world, He opened doors in there. And towards the end of my time there, the warden let me have whatever pretty much books I wanted. So I was blessed. I was given a lot of God granted me a lot of favor on the inside and protected me. And I don't mean protect me from inmates. He protected me from some of the staff, because it's a scary place. And staff can be mean, you know. But you know, God sent me those angels and staff that made it just a little more bearable. And really, that's what I try to do in the free world now. Like when somebody comes to the gallery or come to one of my classes, or they're having a hard day, if I could just make it a little more bearable for them. It's just my way of paying back, or what do they call it? Paying it forward. Yeah. So think about that when you come across somebody having a hard time. You don't know their story. So anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah, so I wasn't, even though I was raised in a religious home, I wasn't religious, and I fought it. But that verse, I don't know if you're familiar with Jeremiah
29:11.
So God grants you a hope for the future. He actually gives you a future, because I didn't think I had a future anymore. And you know, you guys are my future now. I mean, you're my current, but you're also my future. God gave me you guys, you know. When I first divulged this to Deanna and a whole group of people at a table that I was invited to, like this small luncheon, and I was put on the spot and just opened my mouth and out it came. I had no intention of telling anybody else, you know, because I was in a different spot then. Now it's like, whatever, you know. Yeah, I went to prison. Yeah, I have a colorful life. You know, it's, you know, a lot of weird things happened to me, and I did some things I'm not proud of, but you know what? God got me through it, and God's grace gave me the chance to have a whole new life, actually one I like today. Because before prison, I wasn't really thrilled about my life. I didn't like how it was going. Yeah, I had a lot of things. I had a nice house, I had all that stuff. I had the stuff, but it didn't make me happy. I never experienced happiness or relief from depression until God healed me. God healed me. He did. So when I say, hey, I love my life, I do. And I know a lot of you have heard me say, hey, I love my life. I got a good life, you know. Some of you I've never seen where I live. It's not like the nicest place, but you know what? It's my little spot. And it's really my art studio with a bed. And I am thrilled with that. You know, I can leave all of my stuff out. you know, and on the inside, you have to be counted like cattle. So you have to go to your cells and stand and be counted, head counts and all of that. So if I was painting, you'd have to clean it all up, take it all back to my cell, my room, be counted, take it all back out, pay it back out again, and try to get back on the mindset again. And I'd probably do that 4 or 5 times in a day, right? Yeah, but now I don't have to do that. It stays out all the time. I can sit down at a moment's notice and paint something and then put it right away. You know, aren't we blessed? Yeah. So, even on, you know, my worst day in the free world is far better than my best day on the inside. You know? So if I can keep that in mind and put my ego aside, check my ego and say, this isn't about me. This is about what God did for me, in me, through me, for me, and continues to do for me. And I don't deserve it. None of us do. But here we are. And I know there's a lot of believers in this room, and if you're not one, then we could talk afterwards. Come on, Hope. Do you have any questions? Some of you might wonder what I went to prison for. I don't know. Are you curious? White collar stuff. My brother ran a Ponzi scheme. I didn't know what one was until I got arrested. I worked for him for about 6 months. He'd been doing it for, I don't know, 5, 6 years. I had been away from the family, so I didn't even see him like build his company. But anyway, so I took a break from my career and went to work for him for lots of reasons. A lot of it was greed, you know, because he said he'd teach me how to make money. I just didn't know it was going to be illegal. But anyway, I worked there for such a short time, I didn't have time to check anything. I didn't have time to go to Hong Kong and Florida and Panama and all those places that he had to, you know, even see if they were real. But it hurt a lot of people. 1,700 people were hurt. $162 million, $100 million was recovered, but 62 million was not. And that's a lot of lives. And I carried a lot of guilt over that. You know, I listened to the testimony at trial and I saw how all these people's lives were destroyed. And even though I unwillingly and unknowingly participated in it, I felt responsible. I felt morally responsible. And so sometimes we just have to forgive ourselves because God already did. So we might as well. You know, so I'm to the point where I know God knows the truth about what really happened, and I know God knows why my brother wouldn't testify to save me and other people that was involved in the case. But you know, had all that not happened, I would have never really found true happiness, I don't think. And I don't mean that art is my true happiness. I mean the true happiness is really in here. You know, art was just the vehicle that got me there. The vehicle in which to help me, you know, help other people, you know, which is why I'm just thrilled to be of service at the gallery, thrilled to be of service in any class I ever get to teach. Because when I'm teaching y'all, I don't have to worry about knives and scissors and a sharp pencil being a weapon. You know, I can let my guard down and really enjoy the process of teaching because I do enjoy teaching. You know? Thank you. So anyway, that's all I have to say. So I'm going to turn it back over to Deanna and sit down and shut up.